All right. We've got Billy back.
Yes.
Who wants to make an argument for factory farming. What has happened to Talk Heathen? Okay, Billy, what's going on? You want to make an argument for factory farming and also for your belief in a higher power. I'm wondering if these are connected.
No, they're not connected.
Okay.
I was listening earlier, and y'all brought up vaccines right after the caller. And isn't it known widely that factory farming, like all vaccines before COVID vaccine, obviously, but all vaccines before that, they all use chicken eggs to, like the earth would be a totally different place with horrific diseases if we didn't do factory farming. Billions and billions of chicken eggs every year are used to make vaccines, which keep people healthy. And it just seems like without that, there would be just rampant diseases, and I mean, who knows? Humanity might not even exist anymore if not for factory farming chicken eggs.
Yeah. Billy,
so,
do you know what a?
Sorry.
Let me see if I can guide us somewhere here. Do you know what a syllogism is?
I do.
Okay, so if you were to take the argument for factory farming that you're making and plug in a couple premises and a conclusion, how would that look?
I could say factory farming. Vaccines are made using chicken eggs. Chicken eggs are made. Oh, wait, no. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm.
I know I put you on the spot, but the reason why I'm asking is this. Yeah. The reason why I'm asking is this is because I think there might be something like a non sequitur buried in here. If the argument goes something like chickens,
well, the conclusion should be therefore factory farming is good, right?
Right.
That should be the conclusion ultimately, right?
Right. So the thing where I think you might be running into a problem here is factory farming the only way to get at these chicken eggs? Or is factory farming in its current form is subjecting chickens to inhumane standards where they're shoved in tiny cages where they can't move and their beaks are chopped off? Is that necessary to achieve the good? That's where I would want to explore that. But a much more interesting way for us to spend this time, since we are on Talk Heathen, would be, you said you can also argue for your belief in a higher power. So right. Are you up for that?
Sure. Well, you guys were talking about studies about what belief does to a person's brain or something like that. Well, Oxford did a study, and the conclusion of that study, it's peer-reviewed, demonstrated that belief in a higher power is a natural human instinct. So I don't know if maybe that, and is there a good reason to believe in God? You said that, and I actually answered yes to that question. Is there a good reason to believe in God? And maybe I'm not exactly precise in that, but if I say that believing in God is a natural thing, an instinct, then is that instinct good, or a good? Well, not really a good reason, but is that instinct good? Although, I mean, it's natural, so you would think that, most natural things are, well, I mean, maybe not. Maybe most. Well,
I think you might be. You might have just started tugging at that string in exactly the direction I was going to. So here's where, if we were to plug this into the old syllogism machine, how would this look? Okay, belief in God is natural. Natural things are good. Therefore, believing in God is good. Is that kind of where you're going? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
That might work. I might tune it up a little bit, but okay. Yeah, if I had time to sit there and think about it, I might be able to do something like that.
Okay, so I mean, we could, I think, probably fairly easily get away from the idea that natural things are good, but I mean, like, we could just plug it in and go, rattlesnake venom is natural. natural
Asbestos.
things are good. Yeah, asbestos is natural, therefore asbestos is good. But I think the bigger question, the word that we should be focused on isn't good, but belief. Okay, and also reason. All right. So when we're talking about reasons to believe things, it may be a natural. I'm not conceding this. I would need to see the study, but I don't know how a researcher could arrive at the conclusion that belief in a higher power is a natural instinct or
Human
something like that.
instinct. Yeah, natural
Yeah,
human
because
instinct.
I'm a
Yeah.
human and I don't believe in a higher power. So I would want to. I'd need to explore that. But even if it were, even if it were natural for human beings to believe in a higher power, would that mean they had a good reason to believe?
Well, I think that it's just a natural. Well, the study also included the afterlife. Gods and the afterlife. Belief in gods in the afterlife are a natural human instinct, and it was a study that Oxford did. It was like a 3-year, multi-million-dollar international study that they did, and I think it's pretty old. So. But it's still around. It's easy to find online.
Let me try an analogy with you then. Just really quick. Let me try an analogy.
Sure.
Because I think that violence toward other human beings is a natural human instinct. But then the question of, do we have good reasons to be violent toward other people would be an entirely separate question than the question of, is it natural for human beings to sometimes have violent impulses? Do you see the distinction?
Right. I do.
So,
yeah,
what would be a good reason?
A good reason to believe in a higher power or a God?
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people probably use it to as kind of I don't know, maybe a crutch. Maybe crutch is not the right word, but they might use it as kind of a support mechanism for their own, mental, psychological.
You're talking about what people do, but the question is good reasons. Johnny, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I had something maybe analogous. It's natural for human beings and other animals to, when they hear sounds in the forest or in the darkness, to attribute to that sound a threat, right? Or something like that.
Or agency.
Right. It's natural. Agency or a threat, but that doesn't mean that there's actually a threat there. It's just something that served us in ancient times to avoid the false positives kept us from being eaten by jaguars, right? But that doesn't mean that every noise is a jaguar, right?
But that's if we acted instinctively. Consciousness is actually, or high level consciousness is actually not a survival benefit at all. It's actually a detriment to survival, because whenever something acts instinctively, it just does what it doesn't really sit there and make the decision like, ooh, what is that? Is that something bad? Is that its instincts tell it what to do, and it just does it.
I think there are times when a knee-jerk lizard brain reaction is advantageous, and then maybe for longer term planning, or eating poison berries, more evolved, more developed memory and cultural memory does serve the individual in those situations when there is a time to be able to use memory, use cognition, and make intentional choices, right? We've been so successful as a species because we have, in the beginning, all we had was that basic stuff, and it got us through those cold, dark nights with jaguars around every corner. And now we're living in a world that's a little bit more complicated, and look at where we are. We have YouTube conversations going on. I don't know if that's great, but it's certainly better than living in there could be a jaguar on the corner right now kind of lifestyle.
Right. And the thing that I just want to focus this call, because we have another caller that I want to get to, and we are starting to get a little short on time. So we've sort of already established that natural instincts and intuition are not necessarily a good way to get to true beliefs. So when we talk about good reasons to believe, I want to make sure that we're on the same page. When I'm talking about something being a good reason to believe, that sentence trails off into believe something is true. Okay. So when we're talking about good reasons to believe within the context of this show, okay, the question is, what would be a good reason to believe the claim a God or gods exist is true? Why? What would be a good reason to believe that?
Well, I think the answer that I gave before would be some. Well, I would just repeat that. Like, it gives some people a support mechanism for their psychological complexes and stuff. It just allows them to cope.
So this isn't. So what you just did, I'm only stepping on your toes and interrupting because I have to, because of time. So just to be really clear, what you're doing is making an argument for the utility of a belief, not the truth of a belief. Do you see that?
But the truth of a belief is not something that, like, if you knew that it was true, then you wouldn't have to believe it, right? You would just know that it's true.
Well, no, belief is just the state of being convinced a claim is true. So just to be clear what we're talking about, when you believe something, we're talking about a mental state. We're talking about the state of being convinced X is true. So in this case, X is the claim there is a God. So we're talking about what would be a good reason to believe claim X, there is a God, is true. And the utility of that belief is separate from the truth value of the belief. I could believe that I'm going to date Scarlett Johansson, and that could make my life way better. I could start working out.
Scarlett Johansson.
It's always Scarlett. It's always Scarlett. Scarlett, I hope you're watching. So I'm married.
Not true, though. But you could believe that something is not true, though. I could believe that something is not true. So it's not really,
Well, and there could be utility. There could be utility to that too. I could, if I had, super high blood pressure, believing that was not true might make me feel nice, but there are consequences to me having high blood pressure that I would need to address. My beliefs being consistent with reality, there's utility to that too. So again, we're getting away from the question. So there's a distinction between arguing for the utility of a belief and arguing for the truth of a belief. And if you don't have an argument for why we should believe that God is real, why we should believe that's true, then I want to break from this call so we can give someone else a chance.
So can I ask? So does any belief in a God have to be a good reason? Can somebody believe in a God for not a good reason?
As far as I can tell, that's the only reasons there are, man.
Yeah.
Well,
I've never heard a good reason.
Somebody believes in it. What if somebody believes in a God like I believe in a God because of the genome, the human, or the genome is the reason that I believe in a higher power, and I wouldn't say that that's a good reason. I believe that that's a scientific reason for believing.
Really quick, I want to just backtrack something I just said, because I just said I've never heard a good reason, and that's not true. I said at the top of the show that there are good reasons to believe there's a God. I just don't think there are good reasons to believe it's true. I think there are utilitarian reasons to believe in a God.
Oh,
but it's a whole separate question. But okay, so just to bring it back, so you just said that the genome is the reason you believe there's a higher power. Can you in very quickly flush that out for us?
Well, there's been simulated models that demonstrate that nature is not capable of sequencing a functional genome. So, and there's more and more scientific mathematical evidence that demonstrates that nature, no matter how long you have, no matter what time scale you have, nature is not capable of even sequencing a single protein, much less an entire.
Do you know who Francis Collins is?
So, I'm sorry?
Do you know who Francis Collins is?
Vaguely.
So Francis Collins, and viewers, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is all just depending on my recall right now. But Francis Collins was, I believe, the director of the project, the Human Genome Project, that sequenced the genome, and that Francis Collins would direct you, would point to completely natural processes as to how we arrived at the genome. Francis Collins is also a God believer. He's a Christian.
Right.
So I'm wondering
like,
why it is
I don't know
that
where
Francis Collins, who's an expert in the field, would see natural processes made the genome, but is also a God believer for entirely separate reasons. I wonder.
Well, he could believe that.
Could be.
He's welcome to believe that. Well, he's welcome to believe that nature is responsible for the genome, but he can't demonstrate that. Nobody ever has. And matter of fact, there's far more evidence that nature is not capable of sequencing a functional genome than there is evidence that.
Yeah. I'm not sure that that's true, Billy. And also, you're trying to answer a mystery, but you're talking over me. I'm sorry, Billy. There's a delay.
Sorry.
But and I did it to you,
Right.
so we're. But you're trying to solve a mystery by appealing to what could be considered an infinite mystery, something outside of anything that's measurable, seemingly measurable, and seemingly knowable on a human scale. So,
yeah, and in the interest of just clarity, everything about what you're doing right now would be what's known as an argument from incredulity. So you're looking at a natural thing that exists, the genome, and you're saying, I don't know how we could have gotten there by natural means, or there are some people who suggest that we couldn't have gotten there from natural means, therefore God. And that is
that's not. No, you're wrong. Okay. That's not what I'm doing. Like, it's not what we don't know. It's not what we don't know. It's what we do know. I'm not acting from incredulity. It's what we do know. It's the science that we do have that demonstrates more and more that nature is not capable of sequencing the functional genome. So and every time we learn something new, it supports that. Well, I mean, I mean, you're welcome to think that, but I mean, again, I've been researching this for like 25 years, and if you know,
are you a geneticist?
By all means.
Billy, are you a geneticist?
I'm not.
So when you say you've been researching this, what does research mean in this context?
Researching is self-explanatory. I thought, like,
no,
it's not.
No, that sounds like a sidestep, Billy. Honestly, we're running out of time to really deal with it, but
reading scientific literature, reading scientific literature for 25 years.
What can you just give me an example of I mean, just really quick, what would be an example of scientific literature in this context?
I can look one up for you. There's a lot of it. I mean, there's one that comes to mind is a paper that questions Darwinian evolution in regards to abiogenesis or chemical evolution.
Where was this paper published? I'm curious.
Let me. I don't have it on hand here. I've got it in a folder. If you'll give me I mean, I know we're short on time. If you want to, I could email it.
Take 10 seconds because here's what's happening.
Let me look.
What you're describing doesn't sound scientific to me at all, because I don't think science is in the business of sort of attempting to prove negatives in this sense. I don't know of any scientific paper that makes an appeal to the supernatural for where there's a gap in our understanding for how nature has done its thing. So I'm deeply skeptical. So if you have that handy, now's the time to bust it out. Otherwise, we're going to move on to a different caller, and we can revisit this on a future show.
Right. And Billy, it's okay if you don't have it, because we have email. So if you would, and the Facebook groups who are heathens, plural, at atheist-community.org. Go ahead, send the article to us. Kenneth is a straight shooter.
Yeah, I'm
going to give him a homework assignment. I'll read it too. And maybe we can have a more of a conversation on this in the future, because I think this is interesting stuff. Let's do it.
Sure.
So, and call back sooner. Call back sooner in the day, because
call earlier in the show.
Yeah, please.
All right, we're going to move on to another caller then, Billy.
Sure. I was having a problem with my phone, so
No worries,
No,
man.
no, it
We'll
happens.
talk
We
to you
know
in the
what it's
future.
like.
Please post or send the link so we
Okay.
can evaluate it.